Hey everyone, and welcome back to another deep dive.
Yes, hello everyone.
Today we're going to be talking about something really important. It impacts all of us. Whether you're like a super seasoned investor or you're a student and just starting out exploring the world, we're going to be talking about double taxation avoidance agreements, or as they're better known, DTAAs.
DTAAs.
Make sure you hit like and subscribe and click that notification bell so you never miss another deep dive.
It's really amazing how these agreements just kind of quietly shape the global landscape. I like to think about them as bridges between nations, just making sure that income earned in one country doesn't face this double tax whammy when you go back home.
Yeah, exactly. Like imagine you land this amazing dream job abroad and you're making great money. And then you find out, oh, I have to pay taxes in both countries. Not ideal. So DTAs are designed to prevent that.
Headache for sure.
Yeah.
This is particularly relevant if you're an aspiring UPSC candidate. This is a topic that comes up a lot in the GS2 International Relations paper. But even if you're not prepping for exams, I think DTAs are really essential knowledge for anyone interested in just understanding global economics and diplomacy.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's break this down a little bit. What exactly is a DTAAs?
At their core, they're treaties between countries that basically agree to avoid taxing the same income twice. So if you're earning money in one country, but you live in another, the DTAA can make sure that you don't get unfairly burdened.
So it's like a pact between countries to play fair and to make sure that their citizens aren't stuck with this double tax bill.
Exactly. And remember that recent amendment to India's DTAA with Mauritius?
Oh, yeah.
That's a perfect example of how these agreements have to evolve and change to meet the challenges. And a constantly changing global landscape.
Right, that was all over the news,
No.
that amendment. And it was aimed at preventing companies from using Mauritius as a tax haven.
Yes.
And making sure they pay their fair share.
Right.
And, where they're actually earning their profits.
Yes. It highlights a key point. DTAs aren't static. They're living agreements. They adapt to changing economic realities and international tax standards.
So why should this matter to, let's say, like a student in college?
Yeah.
Or, someone just starting their career?
Well, think about it. The world is becoming increasingly more interconnected. So you might work for a multinational company. You might invest in overseas markets. You might even land a job abroad. And these DTAAs ensure that your income, your investments, all your financial activity is protected from double taxation, no matter where life takes you.
So it's like a financial safety net for anyone who's venturing into this global arena.
Yeah, I like that analogy. And for anyone interested in international relations, DTAs actually provide this fascinating glimpse into how nations cooperate on these really complex financial matters. It's not just about taxes, it's about building trust, encouraging investment, and fostering a more stable and predictable global economy.
So I know DTAAs sound like this kind of dry topic.
Yeah.
But, they have real-world consequences. Remember those lower TDS rates on NRI bank deposits we've all been hearing about?
Well, that's a direct result of DTAAs. The agreements often include provisions that actually reduce withholding tax rates on the interest earned by non-residents. So it actually makes it more attractive for them to invest in India.
See, it's not just this abstract concept. It really impacts people's lives.
It's all about creating that win-win situation.
Right.
Speaking of a win-win, did you know that India has this vast network of DTAAs? We're talking agreements with over 80 countries, including major players like the US, the UK, Canada, Singapore.
That's incredible.
It's a testament to India's engagement with the global economy and its commitment to facilitating international trade and investment.
Yeah, it shows how interconnected we are.
Definitely.
All right, so we got the basics down. DTAAs are agreements between countries to avoid that double taxation. But how do these agreements actually work? Do they cover everything?
That's where it gets interesting. DTAs aren't just a blanket no double taxation rule. They're carefully crafted to address very specific categories and to ensure a fair and balanced approach to taxation.
So it's not just like a one-size-fits-all?
No, not at all. They're tailored to cover different types of income, services, salaries, property, capital gains, you name it. And they establish these clear rules on which country has the primary right to tax each type of income.
So if I'm a freelancer
Yeah.
and I'm working for a client in another country, the DTAA would ensure that my income isn't taxed by both my home country and my client's country.
That's exactly right. The DTA would likely allocate those taxing rights to the country where your client is located, so that prevents double taxation on your hard-earned income.
That's a huge relief for anyone in this globalized gig economy.
It is, and it's not just about freelancers. Imagine an Indian company Setting up a branch in the U.S., the DTA would ensure that the profits earned by that branch aren't taxed in both India and the U.S.
So this sounds pretty intricate. I imagine this must involve a lot of negotiation between countries.
Oh, you're absolutely right. DTAAs are complex agreements. They require very careful consideration of each country's tax laws, their economic interests, and their international commitments. But at the end of the day, the goal is to create that level playing field and ensure that everyone contributes their fair share to the global tax system.
And that brings us to, I think, a crucial point. We've talked a lot about fairness and avoiding double taxation. But there's a flip side to this, right?
Yeah.
What about companies that are trying to exploit these agreements to avoid paying taxes altogether?
You've hit upon a really critical challenge in international taxation: base erosion and profit shifting, or BEPS. It describes the strategies that multinational companies sometimes use to minimize their tax liabilities by exploiting loopholes and differences in tax rules across different countries.
So instead of just avoiding double taxation, they're actively trying to shift their profits to low-tax jurisdictions, even if that's not where they're actually doing business.
Exactly. And this is where DTAAs actually play a crucial role in combating BEPS.
Wait, how can an agreement that's designed to prevent double taxation also be used to combat tax avoidance?
It's not about the agreements themselves. It's about how they're interpreted and enforced. DTAAs are constantly evolving to address these challenges. The goal is to make sure that companies pay their fair share of taxes where they genuinely conduct business and generate profits, not just where they've managed to shift their income on paper.
Right. So this makes me think of that recent amendment to the India-Sri Lanka DTAA. Wasn't that partly motivated by concerns about BEPS and aligning the agreement with international standards?
You're spot on. That amendment really reflects this global effort to create a more transparent and equitable international tax system, making sure that companies can't simply hop from one country to another to dodge their tax obligations.
So DTAs are like dynamic tools. They're constantly evolving to meet the challenges of this rapidly changing global economy.
Exactly, and that's why they're so fascinating. They're not just static agreements. They're a reflection of the ongoing dialogue between nations as they grapple with issues of fairness, transparency, and cooperation in the global tax system.
Yeah, it really is a fascinating area.
Yeah.
Especially if you're one of those aspiring to join the Indian Foreign Service. DTAAs are a key part of that economic diplomacy landscape, and understanding them could really give you an edge in those tough GS2 papers.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
But it's not just about rote memorization for exams. DTAAs offer this real-world glimpse into how nations negotiate and cooperate on these complex financial matters.
For sure.
So let's say I'm a UPSC aspirant. I'm furiously taking notes on all of this. What are the key takeaways that I should be focusing on when it comes to DTAs?
Well, first and foremost, you got to grasp the core purpose. Remember, it's all about preventing double taxation and fostering that cross-border investment. You should be able to articulate how DTAs actually contribute to a stable and predictable global economic environment.
Right.
Laying the groundwork for smoother international trade and investment. So it's like creating a set of rules that everyone agrees to play by, making it easier for businesses to operate across borders without worrying about getting hit with double taxes.
Exactly. And don't forget the real-world examples. That India-Mauritius DTAA amendment we talked about? That's gold for your UPSC prep. You should be able to analyze how such agreements are negotiated, the reasons behind amendments, and the potential impact on both countries involved.
Yeah, it's like a case study in action, showing how economic diplomacy plays out on a global stage.
Exactly. And don't forget the bigger picture. Remember BEPS, understanding base erosion and profit shifting. And the global initiatives to combat tax avoidance is crucial. It really demonstrates how interconnected national tax systems have become. No country is an island when it comes to taxation.
It's like a global game of chess, with countries and companies constantly strategizing to optimize their positions.
That's a great way to put it. And for UPSC aspirants, understanding this interplay between national interests, international cooperation, and the ever-evolving landscape of tax avoidance, it's key.
Now, shifting gears a little bit, how do DTAAs fit into India's overall foreign policy and economic strategy? It seems like they play a pretty significant role in attracting foreign investment.
Absolutely. India's DTA network is a clear signal of its commitment to engaging with the global economy. These agreements are tools for building stronger economic ties with other countries. They're sending a signal that India is open for business, and it creates this more favorable environment for cross-border activities.
So it's like rolling out the welcome mat for foreign investors, assuring them that their investments in India will be treated fairly and protected from double taxation.
Exactly. And as India aims to become this global economic powerhouse, its DTAs will only become more crucial in shaping its international economic relations.
So for our UPSC aspirants out there, keeping an eye on any news related to India's DTAAs, like that recent Sri Lanka amendment, is a must. It shows that you're really on top of current events and that you can analyze the real-world implications of these agreements.
Absolutely. It's a great way to demonstrate that you're not just memorizing facts, but you can apply your knowledge to current affairs and analyze the dynamics of international relations.
Okay, so we've established that DTAAs aren't just about avoiding double taxation for individuals. It's also about promoting global trade, attracting foreign investment, shaping a more interconnected and cooperative world.
And for those of you who aren't necessarily focused on the UPSC exam, understanding DTAs can still be incredibly valuable. It provides this deeper understanding of how the global economy works, how seemingly technical agreements can have a tangible impact on our lives, and the role that diplomacy plays in shaping international financial flows.
So it's like demystifying this kind of a complex aspect of international finance and making it relevant to everyone, regardless of their background or career aspirations.
Exactly. Whether you're a student, a business professional, or just someone who's curious about the world, understanding DTAs can enrich your perspective and open up new avenues for exploration.
Now, remember how we said DTAAs cover these specific income categories. I think let's dive into those a little bit because that's where I think it gets really interesting, especially for anyone who might find themselves working or investing abroad.
Right. DTAs are quite comprehensive in their scope. They address a wide range of income types to protect individuals and businesses from double taxation in all these various cross-border financial situations.
So it's not just about salaries and investments. It covers pretty much every way you could earn money across borders.
That's the goal. Think about it. In today's globalized world, people are working remotely, providing services across borders, investing in overseas markets. The possibilities are endless. And DTAs really aim to ensure that, no matter how you earn your income internationally, you're not unfairly penalized by double taxation.
Okay, so let's break this down. What are sort of the key categories covered under DTAAs?
Well, let's start with income from services. This is a big one, especially in today's digital age, where services are increasingly traded across borders. Think about IT consulting, software development, even freelance writing. These services can be delivered from anywhere in the world.
Right. So if I'm like a graphic designer in India and I'm working for a client in the US, the DTAA between India and the US would come into play to make sure that I'm not taxed in both countries.
Or for the same income.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The DTAA would lay down these clear rules on which country has the right to tax that income. So it provides much needed clarity, both for the service provider and the client. So, it prevents those dreaded double taxation headaches.
That's a huge relief. For anyone participating in this global gig economy, I think it takes a lot of the stress and the uncertainty out of working with clients across borders.
Absolutely. And it's not just about individuals. Imagine an Indian company providing IT services to a client in Europe. The DTAA would ensure that the income from those services is treated fairly and consistently. And it encourages those cross-border business collaborations. It's about creating a level playing field for businesses, whether they're large corporations or small startups, to operate globally without facing unnecessary tax hurdles.
Exactly. And another crucial category is salary income. This one's particularly important for those who might relocate for work or take on those international assignments.
So if an Indian engineer gets a job offer in Germany, the DTAA between India and Germany would ensure that their salary is taxed fairly, either in India or Germany, but not both.
Precisely. It simplifies things for individuals working abroad, allowing them to focus on their careers without getting bogged down by these complex tax issues in multiple countries.
It makes taking that dream job abroad much less daunting, knowing that you're protected from double taxation.
Absolutely. And it benefits both the individual and the host country. The individual can contribute their skills and expertise without unnecessary tax burdens. And the host country gains from attracting those talented professionals.
It's a win-win for everyone involved. Now, what about income from property? I know a lot of people invest in real estate overseas, and that must generate rental income. How do DTAAs handle that?
That's a great question. And DTAs definitely address this. They establish rules for taxing rental income from property that's owned in one country, but rented out to residents of another country.
Okay, so if I own an apartment in London and I rent it out to a British resident, The DTA between India and the UK would come into play.
Exactly. It would outline how that rental income is taxed, preventing double taxation, and providing that clarity for both the property owner and the tenant.
This is particularly relevant in today's world, where people are more mobile. And investment opportunities really span the globe. It's reassuring to know that these agreements are in place to protect investors and ensure a fair and predictable tax environment.
Absolutely. And it's not just about individuals. Companies that own properties abroad and lease them out also benefit from these provisions.
It all ties back to creating that stable and transparent environment for cross-border investments, encouraging the flow of capital, and fostering closer economic ties between countries.
Now, let's not forget about another important category: capital gains. You know, these are profits earned from selling assets, like stocks or real estate, and they can be a bit of a tax maze, especially when dealing with international investments.
So if I sell shares in a U.S. company, the DTAA between India and the U.S. would determine how those capital gains are taxed.
Exactly. The DTAA would aim to prevent you, an Indian resident, from being taxed in both India and the U.S. on those gains, and this encourages cross-border investment and ensures that investors aren't discouraged by the prospect of double taxation.
This is especially important, given how interconnected global financial markets have become. Investors aren't just limited to their own countries anymore, and DTAAs help ensure that they can participate in global markets without facing these unnecessary tax complexities.
Yeah, and it's not just stocks. Capital gains from selling other assets, like real estate or businesses, are also covered under DTAAs.
Speaking of things that are important to a lot of people, especially those with ties to multiple countries, let's talk about savings and fixed deposit accounts. How do DTAAs affect the taxation of interest earned on those?
DTAAs often have specific provisions that address the taxation of interest earned on savings and fixed deposit accounts that are held in one country, but by residents of another country.
So if I'm an NRI holding a fixed deposit account in India, the DTAA between India and my country of residence would determine how the interest earned on that account is taxed.
Precisely. The agreement would lay out the rules, ensuring that you, as the account holder, don't face double taxation on that interest income. It provides clarity and peace of mind for NRIs who want to maintain financial ties with their home country.
It's like a bridge between the financial systems of two countries, ensuring that people aren't penalized for having financial interests in multiple locations.
And it's not just limited to NRIs. Anyone who resides in one country but has savings accounts in another can potentially benefit from these DTA provisions.
So as we can see, DTAAs are remarkably comprehensive. They cover this vast spectrum of income sources, aiming to prevent double taxation and create a fair and transparent system for anyone engaged in cross-border financial activities.
It's like a safety net for anyone venturing into that global financial arena, ensuring they can invest, work, and save across borders without facing the complexities and burdens of double taxation.
It's really amazing how these agreements, which might seem technical and complex on the surface, play such a crucial role in shaping a more interconnected and cooperative world. It really is fascinating how these agreements that are kind of like tucked away in the legal world have this profound impact on how money flows, how businesses operate, and even how we perceive this world. That's becoming, so much more interconnected.
It really is a testament to the power of cooperation. Despite differences in tax systems and, varying economic interests, countries can still come together to create this fairer and more efficient global system.
Yeah. And for those of you listening, whether you're, future diplomats or budding economists or simply just curious minds, DTAAs are like this gateway to understanding this crucial aspect of international relations. And they're not just about numbers and legalese. They're really about building trust and fostering a global environment where everyone can thrive.
They're like the unsung heroes of global finance, quietly shaping the landscape and enabling those smoother cross-border transactions. Imagine a world without DTAAs. Businesses would be tangled up in red tape, individuals would face these confusing tax burdens, and international trade would be significantly hampered.
Yeah, it's kind of like a scary thought when you think about it like that. And it really does highlight the importance of these agreements. They're not just like bureaucratic formalities. They're the building blocks of a more stable and prosperous global economy.
For sure. And for those of you prepping for those UPSC exams, remember DTAs aren't just about that GS2 paper. They can be relevant in other areas too, like economics, international law, even ethics. Think about the ethical implications of tax avoidance and the role that DTAs play in ensuring fairness and accountability.
Yeah, it's about connecting the dots and seeing how these agreements ripple through
Yeah.
various aspects of international relations and impact the lives of people across the globe.
And for those of you who aren't, like, exam-focused, understanding DTAs can still be incredibly empowering. It gives you insight into how the global economy works, how financial decisions are made, and the role of diplomacy in shaping our world.
Yeah, it's like having this secret decoder ring for understanding the language of international finance.
Hmm.
You can look beyond the headlines and see these underlying forces that drive global commerce and cooperation.
I like that.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of DTAs, I want to leave you with a final thought. As the global economy continues to evolve, so too will DTAAs. We're seeing new technologies emerge, new business models arise, and the digital world is increasingly blurring geographical boundaries. So how will DTAAs adapt to these changes? How will they ensure fairness and prevent tax avoidance in a world that is changing so rapidly?
It's a really fascinating question. And it definitely deserves our attention. You know, DTAs aren't static, they're dynamic agreements. They need to evolve to keep pace with this global landscape that's constantly changing.
And for those of you who are just starting to explore the world of international relations, this is a great reminder that it's a dynamic field and it's constantly evolving. There's always something new to learn, new challenges to address,
Yeah.
and new ways to contribute to creating a more just and equitable world.
So stay curious, stay engaged, and keep exploring those intricate connections that make up our globalized world.
Yeah, and that brings us to the end of our deep dive into double taxation avoidance agreements. We hope you found it enlightening, insightful, and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
If you enjoyed this exploration, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on future deep dives into, all sorts of fascinating topics that matter.
Until next time, keep exploring the depths of knowledge.